Welcome, everyone. Usually when we get together here, we're digging into research, pulling out facts, getting you well-informed on a topic. But today's a bit different. We're not focusing so much on academic studies or news reports.
Right.
Instead, we're sharing stories, real, raw, personal stories. We're going to be exploring some unsettling encounters people have had, experiences that range from, well, just deeply creepy to truly terrifying.
Yeah, and these kinds of stories, they often tap into something really primal, don't they? Our deepest fears.
Exactly.
They raise questions about, the unknown, maybe the limits of our own minds, even the nature of reality itself sometimes. And while the details are always unique, you start to see common themes, like vulnerability or just purely inexplicable.
Let's start with a theme we're calling the shadow of obsession. This first one comes from a university student. It starts innocently enough, just walking back from somewhere.
Okay.
She's with a group, people gradually peel off, and she ends up walking alone with this guy she barely knows. He asks where she's going. She says, back to my dorm for a nap. And then he insists on seeing her suite.
Oh, okay, that's a bit forward.
Yeah, she said given her building's reputation, it wasn't an immediate red flag. Maybe a bit weird, but anyway, she lets him in, shows him around. Then he just goes silent.
Right, and that shift from chatty to silent, especially after insisting on getting inside her private space,
Yeah.
that's already a warning sign. It's that violation of boundaries starting.
Totally. And then it gets worse. She mentions needing that nap, and he just says, completely flat, no change in tone, that's okay, I can watch you sleep.
Wow, just chills. That phrase itself is designed to terrify, isn't it?
Absolutely terrifying. She immediately told him to get out, followed him out, made sure the door was locked, told her friends. They were horrified, obviously. But then, a year later, she hadn't seen him, maybe forgot about it mostly. She's on a bus, and there he is.
Oh, no.
She hadn't covered her face or anything. She just bolted off that bus so fast. Later, she checks her phone. Multiple missed calls from him.
From that day?
Yeah, and a voicemail. And the voicemail was just breathing.
That persistence, even after a year, it shows a deep, unsettling fixation. It's not just a fleeting, creepy moment. It's sustained.
And that phrase, I can watch you sleep, it's pure psychological warfare. It targets your most vulnerable state.
It really does. And it just stays with you, that feeling.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into this next story. This one's from high school, about a girl the narrator calls Ellie Smith.
Okay.
This is during the narrator's sophomore year. And she mentions being really shy, dealing with a lot of anxiety.
A vulnerable time anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So one day in gym class, this girl, Ellie, just starts staring at her.
Staring. Okay.
The narrator kind of ignores it. She says, big mistake. Then before class starts, Ellie just stands up and announces to the teacher, I have a story too. I finally found my best friend that I haven't seen in years. She doesn't even recognize me.
Whoa. Okay, so Ellie is pointing at the narrator.
Yes, claiming they're long-lost best friends, even though they've never met. Right, that's not just awkward. That's a sign of something much deeper, a disconnect from reality, potentially a delusion. It's terrifying for the person targeted because, well, how do you even respond to that?
Exactly. And they looked nothing alike. Ellie was older. The narrator just panicked, ran to the bathroom, hid there for most of the class.
Understandable.
Later, in the locker room, Ellie's just staring again while she gets dressed. The narrator lies about having to go to a meeting at Olive Garden, just anything to escape.
Wow.
She tells her next teacher, someone she trusts, and the teacher pulls her aside later. Ellie had apparently been talking about her nonstop. And the teacher's advice, contact the police immediately. Ellie is a known minor offender.
Oh my God. Known to the police already. That changes everything.
Yeah, the narrator was terrified. Like, what had Ellie done? The police couldn't do much, though, so the school just switched her classes.
A temporary fix, maybe.
Sort of. But she'd still see Ellie in the halls. All the time. Ellie would just scare. Or worse, her friends saw Ellie turn and make this horrifying face at her, and Ellie would yell things across the hall like, I'm gonna get you.
That's outright threatening and incredibly unnerving.
For sure. It went on into junior year. It basically ruined part of her high school experience, always looking over her shoulder. Even after Ellie graduated, the narrator says she sometimes still feels like she sees her out of the corner of her eye. The paranoia lingers.
And that's the lasting impact, isn't it? It's not just the act of harassment. It's the long-term psychological toll. That constant hypervigilance, the feeling that your reality has been fundamentally altered by someone else's delusion.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly, but stay with obsession. Now into the digital world. Online stalking. This person was harassed starting back in October 2018.
Digital stalking has its own unique terrors.
It really does. It began with a weird Facebook message, just F white people.
Okay. Random and aggressive.
Yeah. The recipient thought it was odd, replied, asking, like, what? And was immediately blocked. A month later, another message. This time, it's a screenshot of an empty Instagram account. Made in the victim's name. No posts, no followers, nothing.
Creepy. Like someone staking a claim.
Totally. She tried to reply, again, instantly blocked. Couldn't even find the account if she searched for it herself.
So it's targeted, but elusive. That's part of the digital nightmare, the anonymity, the difficulty in pinning it down.
Definitely. And her name wasn't common, so it wasn't an accident. She reached out to a high school friend of the stalker, found out they weren't really friends anymore. Then the victim's own friends started getting messages.
What it's spreading.
Yeah, weird memes, just nonsensical 3-word sentences, just bizarre. The victim barely knew this girl, couldn't figure out why, decided to just ignore it.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, this time it didn't. Around Christmas, her Facebook just explodes. Over 100 notifications. The stalker had shared all her profile pictures, all her posts, and added messages like, end your life, and I hope you die.
Vicious. And public like that.
And again, she was blocked, couldn't reply, couldn't engage directly.
That escalation is terrifying. When someone's delusion feeds itself online, it can spiral so quickly. The lack of real-world checks and balances, the instant feedback loop, it creates this relentless assault. The victim is forced onto the defensive across all these platforms.
It was relentless. Before getting blocked that time, the victim scrolled the stalker's wall, hundreds of shared posts. Pictures of her, her friends, even strangers she didn't know.
She's completely fixated.
She found the stalker's sister online, messaged her. The sister freaked out, called her own sister a crazy stalker, promised to talk to her, and it actually stopped for a few months.
Okay, a glimmer of hope maybe.
Yeah, but then February 2019, playing games online suddenly, notifications, swarming again.
No.
Same stuff. End your life, I hope you die. The stalker just kept creating new accounts, almost 10 of them. The victim just desperately blocking each one.
It's exhausting. That constant vigilance, never knowing where the next attack will come from. The digital space means there are endless avenues for them to reappear.
And then it got even weirder. The stalker started messaging the victim's cousin.
Expanding the net again.
Yeah, but she thought the cousin was the victim's father. And she starts fabricating these wild stories, claiming the victim owed her money.
Money. Where did that come from?
Totally out of nowhere. Claimed the victim stole her phone, hacked it, borrowed money, was the reason she lost a scholarship, had to move. Just crazy lies. And the amount kept going up. First $10,000, then $50,000, then $100,000.
Wow. The delusion is just building on itself in these fantastical ways.
Completely. The victim ended up telling her cousin, look, just play along, see what she says. It's just a disturbing look at how deep obsession can go, especially online. Really makes you think about how fragile our digital lives can be. Okay, let's move to our next theme, the intrusion into sanctuary. These are stories where home, the place you should feel safest, becomes the site of terror.
Yeah, this hits a really primal fear. Home is supposed to be the refuge.
Exactly. This first one is called The Window Man. The narrator was living in a first-floor apartment, sleeping on a mattress right by the window.
Okay, first floor, window access, already a bit vulnerable.
Yeah. And one night, around 12:30 a.m., she just wakes up, no noise, no reason, just wakes up with this overwhelming urge to look at the windows behind her.
Intuition? Maybe?
Maybe, because when she looks, there's a tall man halfway in her window, one leg almost on the floor inside her room.
Oh my God, nightmare scenario.
She panicked, thought maybe she was dreaming, but then realized no, she could move. She whispered just barely, oh my God.
And what did he do?
He looked up. She said it was dark, but his eyes were shining in the moonlight. And he puts on this horrible ear-to-ear grin, puts a finger to his lips and goes, shh.
Oh, that is pure terror. That shh, it's about control. It's silencing the victim's fear. Utterly chilling. And the fact she woke up before he made noise, that's uncanny. Makes you wonder about subconscious awareness.
She screamed. Like a banshee scream, she said. Startled him, he almost fell back out the window.
Good. Use that voice.
She scrambled, slammed the window shut, and locked it, just as he was trying to get back in. Her mom heard the scream, rushed in, and as they're standing there talking, the man climbs up to the next window right beside them and starts trying to open that one.
Persistent. And brazen.
She screamed even louder, pushed him hard as he was getting it open, made him fall off whatever he was standing on. He cursed at her, tried to make up some lame excuse, but she just kept screaming, "Get out!" for like 5 minutes straight until he finally left.
Wow. Adrenaline is incredible.
But here's the really weird part. The next day, her mom confessed something. 3 weeks before this happened, the narrator had a dream. A dream about almost the exact same event.
Whoa. Okay, that adds a whole other layer. Premonition, or the mind processing subconscious cues. It's impossible to know, but deeply unsettling. And the fact remains, she woke up for no reason. What if she hadn't?
Okay, another intrusion story. This narrator was 19, home alone. Admits she was a bit naive back then, didn't always lock doors, left windows open a crack.
We've all been there, maybe feeling a bit too safe.
So her bedroom window was slightly open, curtains mostly open too, but there were trees outside providing some cover. She's half lying in bed with her laptop, and she sees a shadow pass the window.
Okay, peripheral movement. Could be anything, but...
But she knew, location-wise, no one should just be walking past there. Then, another shadow. And a third.
Okay, definitely not random.
She froze, knew something was wrong, pulled her laptop closer like a shield. After a minute or two, another shadow going the other way, and she mentions she was completely naked under the covers, which just adds this layer of extreme vulnerability.
Absolutely. That freeze response is classic. The body knows something's wrong before the mind fully catches up. Your intuition is screaming, even if you're trying to rationalize it.
It felt like forever, she said. Then suddenly, bang! A loud noise on her window.
Trying to break it.
That's what she thought. But then, the curtains started moving. A hand came around the edge.
Oh, Lord.
Pulled the curtain back. And a man started climbing through her window. Halfway in, top half of his body inside her room.
Nope. That's it. Time to go.
That was the switch. Fight or flight kicked in. She shot up, ran to her bedroom door, fumbling with the lock. It was locked from the inside, making a ton of noise trying to get it open.
That noise might have helped.
Maybe. She finally got it open, ran upstairs, still naked, banging on her roommate's door. They called the police. Cops were there in 2 minutes flat, apparently assuming it was a burglary in progress.
That quick response tells you how seriously they take home invasions. It's a high-priority threat. That instinct to flee, even in panic, is powerful.
Nothing was taken. Police figured she must have scared them off with the noise. Their theory was maybe the intruders thought her downstairs room was a living room or something. Expected everyone to be upstairs asleep.
Plausible? Maybe.
But the really chilling confirmation. She went back down later to check her room. The window she'd left open, just a crack. It was now wide open. Confirmed it wasn't just her imagination.
Physical evidence.
And then her roommate told her something even creepier after the police left. The roommate had woken up about 5 minutes before the narrator started screaming.
Okay.
And she heard that initial loud bang on the window while she was awake, but she just didn't react, maybe thought it was nothing.
Wow. So the roommate's subconscious registered the danger too, but didn't trigger the alarm consciously until the scream started. It really shows how sometimes our bodies know long before our conscious minds admit there's a threat.
All right, let's move into territory that's harder to explain. The veil thinning. Paranormal manifestations. First up, a story from Aunt Rosie's condo.
Okay, paranormal accounts often tap into that deep unease about things beyond our understanding.
This narrator was staying over, sleeping in his Aunt Rosie's room. Middle of the night, inches from his ear, he hears this deep, guttural growl.
Whoa. Close proximity like that is terrifying.
He started praying, rebuking it. It stopped, but then it came back. A wicked, hissing screech. He said it radiated this overwhelming, scornful hatred just for merely existing.
That description, hatred for merely existing, that's profoundly disturbing. Whether it's an external entity or a projection of deep fear, experiencing that kind of pure malevolence is incredibly unsettling. It feels deeply personal and hostile.
He threw his fists out, but hit nothing. Didn't sleep again till dawn. A week later, same situation, sleeping in her room. He prayed beforehand, drifted off. This time, no growl, no hiss.
Okay, maybe it worked.
Nope. Instead, he heard a sound like a heavy dungeon door slamming shut. And then, 2 red, beaming eyes staring at him from the darkness.
Oh, classic imagery, but terrifying nonetheless. Red eyes in the dark.
He said he was just so tired of being scared at that point, he just stared back. Stared them down until they vanished. He realized later he was just fighting the symptoms, not the root cause. Apparently, his mother used to catch Aunt Rosie talking to something unseen in that condo, saying things like, "I told you to leave me alone, get out of here."
Okay, so Aunt Rosie was experiencing things too. That raises the idea of attachment, not just to a place, but maybe to a person. Psychologically, it could be a shared delusion, or perhaps Aunt Rosie externalizing some internal distress in a way the family understood through a paranormal lens.
Well, the activity in the condo supposedly stopped completely only after Aunt Rosie moved out to live with her son, which led the narrator to the scary thought that maybe, whatever it was, followed her.
Yeah, that's the unsettling implication of personal attachment versus location-based haunting. No escaping it by just moving.
Okay, next one is different, still unexplained. The doppelganger.
Yeah, doppelgangers. Always unsettling. The idea of a double.
This narrator kept seeing his husband's exact double. Same clothes, same hat, everything. But it would happen right after he dropped the real husband off at work.
So impossible for it to actually be him.
Exactly. The first time, he sees this figure walk past the window, thinks, wait, did he forget something? Goes outside, nobody there. Calls his husband, who's miles away at work already. Thought he was going crazy.
That cognitive dissonance, seeing something impossible, is incredibly jarring. Is it perception, hallucination, something else? It shakes your confidence in your own senses.
It happened again when a friend, Debbie, was visiting. They're in the kitchen. Suddenly, the narrator sees his husband again. Same clothes, burst through the back door, run straight through the kitchen, and slam the front door shut. He only caught it in his periphery.
Okay, but the friend was there.
Right. Debbie immediately goes, whoa, where did he just go?
So she saw it too.
Apparently. The narrator knew instantly it wasn't his real husband. Checked outside, real husband is still out in the side yard working on something. Debbie confirmed, dude, someone just ran into your house.
Having a witness makes it so much harder to dismiss. It shifts from am I crazy to what is happening.
Totally. And apparently other family members have had similar sightings of the husband's double, even his own father. It's this ongoing weird family phenomenon. The narrator even mentioned some superstition about seeing your doppelganger. Hopefully just superstition. But yeah, it really makes you question perception when someone else sees the same inexplicable thing. Last one in this section, the white noise TV. This starts right after the narrator watched a movie about electronic voice phenomena, EVP.
Okay, so the idea is already planted.
Yeah, in the movie, the character finds voices in TV static at 3:30 a.m. So that very night, narrator's watching TV, it's late, exactly 3:30 a.m. hits, and their TV switches from the show they were watching to pure white noise, static.
Okay, coincidence, power of suggestion after the movie, that's the immediate logical leap.
Ah.
But the specificity of the time is interesting.
He thought maybe coincidence too. Turned the TV off. Woke up, his wife told her. She's skeptical, dismisses it.
Fair enough.
But the next night, roles reversed. She's watching TV late. She
Right.
wakes him up at 3:30 a.m. Totally freaked out.
Don't tell me.
Yep. TV went to white noise again. She was too scared to even turn it off herself.
Okay, happening to the skeptic too makes it much harder to explain away as just suggestion.
They checked their cable box. Maybe there was some weird timer setting. They found out you could technically set it to change channels at a certain time, but neither of them had any idea how to do it, let alone setting it accidentally for 3:30 a.m. right after watching that movie. The odds seem tiny.
Astronomical, yeah.
So the next night, they make absolutely sure the TV is turned off before bed, properly off. 3:30 a.m. comes. They hear static from the living room.
No way.
The TV had turned itself on
Yeah.
and went straight to white noise.
Okay, that's deeply unsettling. Turning itself on is crossing a line from weird glitch to potentially external manipulation.
That's their only solution. They started unplugging the TV from the wall every night. That stopped it. It really makes familiar technology feel suddenly alien and hostile, doesn't it? All right, our final section deals with stories that are, well, profoundly disturbing. Lessons learned, often from teachers, that reveal some truly dark corners of humanity. We start with Mr. Metzger's secret.
Okay.
Metzger was a history teacher in a rough Boston suburb back in the 80s, seemed like one of the few competent, respected teachers there. Rumor was he was a Marine vet, Silver Star, commanded respect.
So an imposing figure, but seemingly respectable. That contrast often hides something darker, unfortunately. The facade.
Yeah. The narrator and his friends at the time were teenagers getting into petty crime, BAE, stuff like that. They got this idea to burgle Metzger's house. They thought he dealt stolen auto parts on the side, figured he'd have cash.
Oh boy, bad idea.
Terrible idea.
Yeah.
Breaking into his garage was easy, but inside, no car parts. It was immaculate, organized. There was a ragged flag, framed newspaper clippings. The word Vietnam stood out.
Okay, so the vet story was likely true.
Seems so. Then the narrator slides open a desk drawer, quietly, finds a necklace, string with these bumpy, wrinkled shapes on it.
Shapes.
He looks closer in the dark, runs his finger along one. The realization hits him. They were human ears.
Oh my God. No, ears. As a necklace.
Yeah, human ears strung together.
That's beyond disturbing. That's evidence of extreme violence, possibly serial offending. Taking trophies like ears, hair. It's a known signature of some truly psychopathic individuals. It's dehumanizing victims to the absolute extreme. The psychological impact on the kid finding that, unimaginable.
He wanted out.
Yeah.
Immediately. Then, floorboards creak upstairs. Metzger.
Oh no, confrontation.
A violent struggle. The narrator's bandana slips off. Metzger sees his face. In pure panic, the narrator headbutts Metzger right in the eye socket, hard, breaks free, runs for his life.
Adrenaline and terror.
He's sprinting, fully expecting to get shot in the back, remembering the rumors that Metzger had killed 10 men. He catches up to his friends who had bailed on him, by the way. One of them mentions seeing something in Metzger's TV room.
Yeah.
Made of human hair.
More trophies, dear God.
They never spoke about it again. Years pass, the narrator turns his life around. Then, decades later, he's at a Home Depot, and he sees him. Mr. Metzger.
Yeah, after all that time.
Metzger locks eyes with him, gives him this predatory glare, the narrator calls it, and says, super ominously, "I never forget a face."
Chills.
Yeah.
Absolute chills. That's a threat clear as day, and it proves a memory the potential danger never really went away. Some traumas just embed themselves.
Next dark lesson, Mr. Schenker's Chernobyl class, another history teacher, but this one, every year on April 25th, would force his students to listen to his first-hand account of the Chernobyl disaster.
Wow. Forced listening. That's intense, but potentially powerful. Hearing it from a survivor, that hits differently than a textbook.
Definitely. He described the moment it happened, 1986, the two massive explosions shaking the earth. He talked about watching this huge stream of ionizing radiation shoot into the sky, lighting up the night with this hideous blue glow. He said, "It was titanic, like looking at the face of God."
That's haunting imagery. The awe mixed with absolute terror. Real-world horror can dwarf fiction.
But what came after was maybe even worse. He described entertainers being brought in to perform for villagers as they were dying of radiation poisoning.
What? Why?
A distraction, denial, who knows. He described a beautiful ballerina doing her final dance, blood leaking from her nose and ears. When she finished, children ran up to give her flowers. Children whose hair and teeth were already falling out from the radiation.
Oh, God. That's unbearable to even imagine.
Then the generator powering the lights stalled, plunging them into darkness, and he said, "To my complete and utter horror, I saw the flowers and the children glowing in the dark."
Glowing from the radiation. The sheer grotesque horror of that image. It makes the invisible threat terrifyingly visible.
He talked about the cleanup. 30,000 people they called liquidators. He called them the condemned, sent in to clean up, knowing it was a death sentence.
The human cost is staggering.
He ended his story by looking directly at one student and asking, "Have you ever had to look a friend in the eye and tell him to walk towards his own painful death?" Just silence in the room after that.
Yeah, how do you even process that? It forces you to confront not just the disaster, but the impossible moral choices, the psychological weight carried by survivors. That question hangs heavy.
Okay, one last one. Mr. Witzbold's Biology of Fear. A substitute teacher this time. Had a smile that was described as somehow too wide.
Creepy vibe already.
He didn't teach the normal lesson plan. Instead, he launched into these clinical, detached explanations of the human body's absolute limits.
Okay, like what?
Survival without oxygen, about 3 minutes before brain damage. Hypothermia, just a 2-degree drop in core temperature can start organ failure.
It's factual, but the focus is grim.
Then hyperthermia. Temperatures over 42.5 Celsius, blood thickens, kidneys fail, muscles break down. His words, essentially, it's when the brain begins to cook.
That detachment, presenting horrific realities so clinically, can be profoundly unsettling. It strips away emotion and forces you to face the cold, hard fragility of biology. It can be more disturbing than gore.
He wasn't done. He pointed to a shy girl, sat her at the front of the class, and calmly explained that if he were to, quote, take a large sharpened implement and remove this promising young woman's head, her nervous system would keep functioning for a short while.
Okay, that's crossed the line. Way beyond academic. That's psychological abuse.
He then said decapitation wasn't the grimmest way to die.
Oh, lovely. What was, according to him?
He described scaphism, an ancient Persian torture method.
I think I've heard of this. It's awful.
He detailed it. Victim trapped in a boat or hollow log, only head, hands, feet sticking out. Force-fed milk and honey until they have horrific diarrhea. then smeared with more milk and honey.
To attract insects.
Exactly. Insects swarm, bite, burrow, drives the victim mad. Death comes slowly from dehydration, starvation, exhaustion, septic shock.
Just the calculated cruelty is staggering.
The bell rang while he was still describing it. Many students were just frozen, couldn't move. Complaints were filed. Kids left the school because of the trauma.
I don't blame them. It's a reminder that the most terrifying horrors aren't supernatural. They're rooted in human cruelty, in our capacity to devise sophisticated ways to inflict suffering. That detached delivery just amplified the horror.
Wow. Okay. That was a journey through some unsettling places today.
It really was.
We've gone from, obsessive behavior that chills you to the bone, to the violation of your home, encounters that seem to defy explanation, and, these deeply disturbing lessons about the darker side of humanity.
Mm-hmm. These stories, they stick with you. Whether you interpret them as physical threats, psychological disturbances, or something genuinely paranormal, they all fundamentally challenge our sense of safety, our assumptions about the world.
They really do. They show how fragile that sense of normalcy can be, how quickly it can be shattered by one encounter, one intrusion, one glimpse into something inexplicable or just plain evil.
And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
About the line between perception and reality, about how our minds cope with things they can't easily categorize or explain away. What is reality when it feels so personal, so terrifyingly subjective sometimes?
That's the question that lingers, isn't it? How do we process the inexplicable, the things that shake our understanding of everything? Well, thank you for joining us today as we shared these unsettling true experiences. It was different from our usual format, but sometimes stories are the most powerful way to explore these corners of human experience.
Indeed. Stay aware, stay safe.
And if you found these stories compelling or just appreciate what we do here, please do consider hitting like, sharing this with someone who might be interested, and subscribing to our channel, Horror Docs. It really helps us out. Until next time.